Hi everyone. Today we're going to talk about the three basic theoretical perspectives in sociology. These three theories that we're going to discuss are really crucial for understanding how sociology works and what I'm going to be asking you to do throughout the semester. These theories are something that you really need to understand because we'll be using them through all of the chapters. So really think about it. You'll find them mentioned in the other chapters as we move on, and quite a bit will be explained when we get to chapters 3 and 4. But again, this is basic, crucial stuff. So if things aren't clear, be sure to ask. Now, of course, the first thing you think about is what the heck is a theory? And when we're talking about a theory, we're usually talking about this relationship of how things are related. You already have an idea in your own mind of how you look at the world. So for us, we're going to go into these three theoretical perspectives. The three basic ones that I want you to know are the functionalist, the conflict, and the symbolic interactionist theory. When I ask you about perspective, we really are talking about ways to look at the world. Now, some books will list a whole bunch of additional perspectives, and you'll see some of these mentioned in your book. But we're going to focus just on the three major ones. The first one is often referred to as structural functionalism. Well, I'm lazy, so we're going to refer to it as just plain functionalism. But the basic point of this theory is that society is independent. All the different parts of society contribute to the whole. A functionalist person, someone who has a world view, a perspective from the functionalist point of view, will look at things, will look at society and say, okay, we've got these different institutions like families and economics and politics, and they're structured a certain way. And if they've lasted a long time, there's a reason why they're here. And from the functionalist point of view, it usually is because those institutions help society to survive. As you went through your book, and you will continue to go through your book, you'll see a number of people mentioned, whether it's Comte, Spencer, Parsons, and many others, who contributed to the idea of functionalism. So think back to those notes, both in the book and the stuff that I put on Blackboard for you. Sorry about that handwriting. Robert Merton is the guy that is related primarily to the idea of manifest and latent functions. Now, these are important. You can read the definition of them, but what I'd like you to do is to think a little bit more in the simpler terms of the functions. Anything that goes on in society tends to have both manifest and latent functions. Things that happen on purpose and were intended, and then other functions that maybe we weren't quite planning on those things to happen. If you can think of examples for this, just as examples for everything in our class, things are going to go a little bit smoother. If you think of the functions of, let's say, a prison. As you can tell, I've got to get used to writing on this tablet. But a prison has manifest functions of obviously keeping criminals behind bars, of separating them from society. But think of some of the latent functions. Some of the latent functions of a prison tend to be a little bit emotional. Maybe it's the idea of fear. Maybe it's the idea of how you feel when you drive by a prison. If you've ever done that, if you've driven by the prison in Concord, that's probably a good one to think about because you see all the barbed wire and the razor wire that's out there. But just by driving by, it creates an emotional response in most people. It might be, oh, I'm glad those guys are behind bars. Or it might be, boy, I'm glad I'm not behind bars. It might even be, oh, good thing I didn't get caught. But all of those things are manifest and latent functions. So keep thinking, keep asking questions. Most folks who look at functionalism, who think society is working from a functional point of view, tend to focus on these points, that it's pretty stable. They focus on the cooperation of society. Now, that doesn't mean that everybody likes it. They don't have to be happy about that cooperation. It's just that they have to do it. That's how things work. So when you're looking at something in society, again, maybe it's a family, maybe it's a social problem, maybe it's how something is set up, your question should be, what function does it serve? How does it fit in the larger society? Functionalists often are conservative because they're looking at things through a long period of time and they're trying to see the bigger picture. When we move to the conflict theory, this tends to be much more critical of society. And again, we'll do more with Marx and with Weber and with Behrendorf and Mills and the feminist point of view later on. But a conflict theory, the basic point comes from Marx, and we're looking at conflict within society. It isn't equal. Things aren't happy. It's not all sunshine and roses. And a conflict theorist looks at the fights, looks at the tensions between those people who have and those who don't. There's all different types of conflict. So if you're going to see things in society, you look at that one thing, again, that institution, that social problem, etc. Look to see who wins. Look to see who loses, who benefits. If that's the way you think when you look at different aspects of society, then you already are a conflict theorist. Bet you didn't even know that. Don't ask me what happened there. When we move to symbolic interactionism, this is the one that is a little bit more touchy-feely. This deals with primarily symbols. We aren't necessarily looking at things objectively. We are looking at the meanings that people put on those symbols. And you can think about that. Again, think of different areas where if you have a symbol, whether it's what you wear, what it means with clothing may certainly depend on the context and on who's wearing it. What you wear to hang out with your friends, what you wear to a presidential inauguration, what you wear to a wedding, those all are symbolic. And this is what a symbolic interactionist looks for. Now, symbolic interaction is a micro-level theory where it's focusing on small groups. The other two are macro-level theories where they're looking at society as a whole. And as a hint, we will most of the time focus on the functional and conflict. If you look at this quick little chart, it's a very basic way to remember this. Functionalist point of view, interrelated. Remember my definition of a system. Conflict point of view, they know everything is unequal and that things are basically a struggle in society. The symbolic interactionism looks at the other people, looks at the symbols that are there. And as I said, we're not going to do the post-industrialist one. Then, just as a wrap-up, here's a quick little table, but your book does a good job, so make sure you take a look at that. When we go into the rest of the semester, what I want you to be sure you think about is, here's my basic hint. Can you think of how each of the three would explain something that we're going to talk about? So when you do this, if you can come up with that explanation for each of the three, you'll be pretty good. Try to put yourself in the shoes of a functionalist. Try to look at things from a conflict point of view. And then think of how the symbols are involved in this understanding. Now, from what I recall, I think most students have an easier time with the conflict theory than the other two, but that could change. I hope this helps.